John would lead humanity to victory in the war against machines. But it hasn't happened yet. Presently, John works as a construction worker for a few days to earn money, living off the grid. No phones, no address so that no one can find him. A scene from the future where thousands of human skulls are beneath the river. Skynet, the name of the AI that started the human extinction, created the Terminators, which currently roam the desolate lands like ants. Such scenes haunt the young man, and he tries to move from one location to the next. One evening, while driving on his motorcycle, he crashed while trying to avoid a deer. The most advanced Terminator model, called a TX, takes a woman's form and is teleported into a store in the middle of Beverly Hills. It sees a female human across the street and murders the innocent woman, steals her Lexus, and dresses up in her clothes. Its mission is to kill John Connor as the primary target along with supposed commanders in the Judgment Day War. It uses a phone to connect to the school district database and compiles a list of targets. Later, after running a red light, the TX is stopped for speeding by a police officer. To fool the human psyche, it expands its breasts and admires the officer's gun. Kate Brewster and her fiancé Scott Peterson are shopping for stuff for their wedding at a department store. Lieutenant General Robert Brewster, her father, phones to inform her that he will be unable to visit due to computer issues at work. General Brewster is then informed by an IT guy that a virus has infected 50% of the public internet as well as numerous military programs. The same night, T-850 Terminator is teleported into the desert outside of Los Angeles and finds a bar where women's night is held. It breaks into a male stripper's room and steals his clothes. Meanwhile, John breaks into a veterinary clinic in order to get some medications to treat the injuries sustained in the motorcycle accident. Meanwhile, TX starts killing the future commanders of humanity. One was working at a fast food restaurant, and the two others were siblings throwing a house party. Early morning, at 5 a.m., Kate arrives at the veterinary clinic to see a customer whose cat is sick. She comes across John and quickly disarms him owing to his drug-induced frailty, then locks him in a kennel cage. Soon, Kate recognizes that it is John Connor. The two went to the same school years ago. Afterward, the customer arrives. Subsequently, TX comes a few minutes later, looking for Kate. It uses the officer's weapon to kill the customer and discovers a small piece of gauze with blood on it. When it licks it to inspect the blood sample, it's shocked after finding out that the blood belonged to Skynet's #1 enemy, John. Kate makes it to the parking lot, where she is apprehended by the TX. The TX has Kate pinned to the ground and demands to know where Connor is. The Terminator appears and ends the interrogation by crashing the TX into a concrete building with a truck at high speed, locks her in the back of her truck, and then searches for Connor. It's like a déjà vu when the Terminator emerges. Connor realizes that it's time. The Terminator then instructs John to drive off when the TX emerges from the pile of debris. Connor climbs into Kate's pickup truck and speeds away. He later discovers that Kate was with him in the back. The TX fires a plasma weapon during a battle with the Terminator, rendering the Terminator unresponsive. The local firefighter and police respond to the commotion. Unbeknown to them, the TX injects nanomachines into several adjacent emergency vehicles and deploys them to pursue Connor and Kate's truck. The TX goes unseen by the police and emergency personnel, commandeers a massive mobile crane, and pursues the emergency vehicles. The Terminator reawakens and seizes a police motorbike from an officer before pursuing the TX. During the chase, several vehicles, electric posts, and buildings are destroyed by the TX and the Terminator. When TX was about to fire the plasma gun from its arms, the Terminator shots a shotgun at one of the wheels, making the TX miss. Eventually, the Terminator manages to hold on to the rampaging truck crane. The TX intentionally hits the Terminator on an incoming fire truck. The Terminator then forces the fire truck to make a U-turn. The firemen on board jump out of the truck, fearing for their lives. The Terminator catches up and ejects the TX from the driver's seat. But the TX managed to grab the truck by the rear bumper. The Terminator makes a calculated move by dropping the crane hook in a manhole and jumps to Kate's truck. The TX re-enters the crane's cab, but it is too late. The cable runs out, causing the crane and rig to be flipped upside down. The TX exits from the wreckage, unable to continue to pursue John and the others. While driving Kate's truck, the Terminator reveals that Connor and Kate are married in the future. But it was a tragedy befalls them when the same Terminator successfully murdered Connor in 2032. In response, Kate then kidnapped the Terminator and reprogrammed it to travel back in time to save them. The Terminator saves Connor and Kate from the TX's onslaught, and the three pay a visit to Sarah Connor's mausoleum, where she is buried 10 years after she died of leukemia. They discover a weapons stash within the casket, which Sarah's friends had left as a backup in case Judgment Day could not be avoided, as indicated in her will. Shortly after the police arrive, the TX, impersonating Kate's lover, arrives, and a struggle ensues, but Connor and the Terminator steal a hearse and flee. They save Kate from the TX as it morphs back into her fiancé's feminine form, briefly stopping it with an RPG. The TX pursues them on foot a short distance further, cutting through the hearse's roof before driving under a semi-truck trailer, which tears the roof off and leaves the TX behind. The Terminator has been designed to transport Connor and Kate to a secure area in order for them to survive the impending Judgment Day. John and Kate are informed by the Terminator that Kate's father is also on the T-Hit-X's list. The United States Air Force took up the Skynet project when Cyberdyne Systems was destroyed and renamed it CRS, Cyber Research Systems. Kate's father is in charge of the project. John insists on preventing Skynet's activation, but the Terminator refuses, claiming that he isn't trained to heed John's directives. But when Kate demands that they go save the general, the Terminator agrees to assist them in rescuing her father. The Terminator was designed to heed Kate's command because it was technically the future Kate who programmed it. Kate's father, General Robert, is tackling the early signs of a virus causing significant issues with public communications, satellite transmissions, and the internet at his command base. TX enters the protected facility under the pretense of a female airman, utterly unnoticed by security. She locates, activates, and takes command of a number of T-12 cyborg hunter-killers. The Terminator, Kate, and Connor break into the secure CRS facility unchallenged. But they were too late. In the master control room, the trio failed to prevent General Robert and the military from launching Skynet. It was General Robert's superiors who ordered to activate Skynet so that the virus that had infected the public network and satellite communications network may be purged. Skynet takes control of the entire military's network. Taking control of dangerous missile systems such as the Minuteman missile system and submarine missiles. Such a weapon was no longer in the hands of the humans. Later, the TX, disguised as Brewster's daughter, enters the control room and calls out for the general. But then it was hit by a couple of shots fired by the Terminator. But it soon transforms back into its feminine form and shoots the general. The Terminator repels the TX attack by launching it down an elevator shaft with a launcher. Connor explains to the general that Skynet is self-aware, and it intentionally made the virus so that they would be forced to activate Skynet. Once granted access to all military installations, it would then start a war with humanity. John then inquiries about Skynet's system core location from the dying general. Robert guides them to his office, where access codes to shut down Skynet is kept. But on the way, they are attacked by two T-12 cyborgs. The Terminator overcomes it by detaching one of the unit's heads and firing its own minigun at the other. The general instructs John to go to Crystal Peak, a fortified military base in the Sierra Nevada highlands. Not soon after, the general dies. On the way out, they meet the TX. The Terminator gets to work and protect the two while they find their way out. In an intense melee combat, both machines cause further damage to the building. Eventually, the TX defeats the Terminator and injects it with nanomachines. As Connor and Brewster flee, they are pursued by a miniature hunter-killer. Kate grabs an AK assault rifle and kills one of the robots, prompting John to remark that Kate resembles his mother. The TX then goes after the two humans. John activates a particle machine that also leads to the runway outside. The TX goes after John and Kate, but the strong energy causes it to be stuck like a magnet and makes it unable to move. Terminator reboots and reattaches its partially detached head. Meanwhile, the TX appears to be dissolving in the particle accelerator loop, but it somehow manages to activate an electric saw and begin cutting through the accelerator barrier. Connor and Brewster try to board the light plane in the airport hangar, but the Terminator suddenly attacks them and is unable to stop itself due to the TX-infused nanomachines. John reminded the Terminator of its primary mission to safeguard Connor and Kate. Before the Terminator can kill Connor, it is able to overcome the TX's nanomachines and shut itself down. Connor and Kate fly to Crystal Peak, but they are targeted once again by the TX, who crashes a helicopter into the base's entrance tunnel shortly after they arrive. The two try to open the blast doors, but then the Terminator, which had reset its fundamental functions, crash lands a second, larger helicopter and smashes the TX beneath its wreckage. The TX continues to chase the two humans despite its legs being destroyed. Still, the Terminator captures it behind a blast door and shoves its last remaining hydrogen fuel cell in the TX's mouth, telling the TX coldly, "You are terminated," before the fuel cell explodes, killing both of them. Afterward, the two survivors, Connor and Kate, prepare to detonate the C4 they've taken with them, only to learn that Crystal Peak is actually a Cold War-era fallout shelter for high-ranking government officials. General Robert lied to them, knowing full well that there's not stopping Skynet. Robert sent them there to shield them from Skynet's imminent nuclear apocalypse. The movie ends with John realizing and explaining to Kate that Skynet does not have a core but is distributed software located in the cloud on numerous networks and computers around the world, allowing for resilience to breakdown of